Welcome to the 80th season final Prelude chat with Elizabeth Schulze, our music director, and I am Susan Wingrove-Reed, the education consultant and principal keyboard in the orchestra. And what a finale we have. Wow. So I'd like to go ahead and dive in. I think the first section of the concert is fascinating as a lead-in to Beethoven Ninth Symphony. And we're beginning with Michael Torke's bright blue music, and then Jennifer Higdon's Blue Cathedral. Yeah. So I know our audience online would love to hear what your thinking was about the blue concept and these two living composers.
Absolutely. In 1985, Michael Torke basically burst on the American scene, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but this piece, which is all about D major. And the thing is that he has synesthesia, which means that he hears keys with colors attached. And he always associated D major, or D, with the blue sky, the limitness, the beauty of it, just happiness in some ways. And this piece is happy, limitless. It's all about D in every way. It stays in one key, but he's really quite ingenious in how he plays with that. Some of the relationships that D implies, the key of D harmony-wise, but always keeps us close to home with simple fragments that recombine a melody that might be passed throughout instruments. Those are medieval ways of composition. It's a tour de force, but the first three notes are the first three notes to the Ode to Joy. And so, to me, starting out with the Ode to Joy, albeit in a kind of fragmentation,
yes.
From a couple hundred years later, from the end of the 20th century, speaking back to D major, which is the key of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. I just thought it was I don't know if it's clever or not, but it's definitely a nod with a wink from one century to the other, and treating something that is important to us as musicians, which is a key, a tonal center, with joy, with ingenuity, and in a different way than Beethoven. But at the same time, acknowledging the implication of it. And I think I wonder if indeed he had the Ode to Joy in mind a little bit. You can't write in a key and not think of all the other works that were in keys. Yeah. He could have done E flat, and then we'd have to have done the Eroica Symphony or something like that. But anyway, when I was coming up as a young musician, he was a superstar. He was the brash, brilliant young composer who really had his face turned to an audience, as opposed to worrying about academia and fulfilling the highfalutin ideas of serialism and all of those. He treats all of it very lightly, because he just wants to write a piece that an audience would enjoy. And I feel that he accomplishes this without sort of leaning on popular music so much, although you might hear a little bit of it. He's using all the materials and all the techniques of the past, but creating something very new.
And his orchestration is so interesting.
Absolutely.
The combinations of instruments and the dance-like
oh my goodness,
tempo.
Yes. And there's a bit of Brahms in it, there's a bit of medieval chant in it, there's a bit of Mahler in it with the big horn whoops that we will hear. It's contemporary techniques, but also ancient techniques put together in a way that I think is very, very just ingenious. Ingenious. And it's only 6-7 minutes long or something like that, but it just takes you through. It's as if it's a collage in a way, using older materials, and putting them together and creating something quite new. But the most important thing is it's a very outward-looking, communicative piece. and that's Beethoven as well. So
and a celebratory opening
absolutely,
to a concert.
and it's bright and it's blue, and I love it. And then Jennifer's piece, the blue, in fact, is not referring to a color, but the middle name of her brother. And this is a memorial piece, but in a way, the blue also, if you don't have to know that, you don't have to know that his name had Blue as a middle name, Andrew Blue Higdon, and you hear the rhythm of his name written in. She calls him very poignantly in the middle. You know, the Andrew Blue Higdon. You hear that in the piece. But again, you don't need to know that. There is the title also evokes limitlessness of a cathedral. The idea of the spirit moving upwards, of everything kind of growing and ascending and transforming and transfiguration in a way. And in some ways this piece also does that. It really, she is helping, quite literally, him move to his next existence. She plays flute, and her brother played clarinet, and so the flute and the clarinet have a conversation throughout the piece until finally she lets him go and he has the final word, to the really special sounds of Chinese chime balls that are just shaken by musicians, and also water glasses that have, so you have that eerie sound, that beautiful sound that that moves from the orchestra up into the heights, to wherever his next journey is. And for her, it was a very cathartic process to write the piece. It's, I would say, arguably her most popular work.
Yes.
It's been performed by hundreds of orchestras, including the Anchorage Symphony several years ago. I think Randy also performed it. And Bright Blue Music was performed by a previous conductor. I'm not exactly sure.
I think it was Stephen Stein.
Probably.
Yeah, it was quite a few years back.
Yeah.
But it was when it was fairly new piece,
yeah,
too.
It was when it was
exciting
hot
at
off
that
the
time.
press. And
Yes.
it was, and Mr. Torquay has moved more into vocal music and vocal drama and opera kind of music. So he's moved away from all that orchestral tour de force. And so I'm glad we're reviving that interest in his music so that the audience can hear that. But the Blue Cathedral, again, I hope will take us into a place where we can receive Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
It's a stunning choice, Elizabeth.
So, and then of course the Beethoven, which is all about communication and all about when instrumental music, in a way, can't quite express.
I know, and to just imagine, from what I've read about the history of the work, to put yourself in the position of being in the audience to hear this for the first time, it was absolutely unprecedented.
Yes, and probably incomprehensible to a lot of people. What is he doing?
All
is
of
this?
These instrumental movements, and then all of a sudden a voice, and then the chorus, and then a quartet.
And it's his voice, and it's his kiss. His music is the kiss to the world, his embrace of humanity. And that's the thing. All three of the pieces are speaking to audiences. Certainly Jennifer speaking to her brother as well, but she's speaking to an audience too. And all of them are speaking to each other in some ways about spirituality, about D major, and all the possible relationships. But for Beethoven, I think why he still enchants us, challenges us, speaks to us, is partly this symphony. He did write something, a choral fantasy previous, which featured the solo piano and chorus. But this piece itself is, it's a symphony that is working itself out and finally gets to a point where, no, all of these notes aren't what I really want to say, what I really want to express. And perhaps if he hadn't become deaf, completely, profoundly deaf, that need to express, not just words on a page on all of those notebooks that he, conversation books, but something beyond the physical creation. It's only someone who was working in his head, I think, could have thought of this in some ways. I don't know of any other composer that would have really been able to write something that turns everything around. We have cacophony at the beginning of the last movement. It's like, no, boom, like he's pounding on the piano or something. It's just, there's something that's just, no, it's not these notes, something more. And a greater creation than anything I can make physically, And he's saying there's got to be a creator. Look to the heavens. And in mus and kus, all of those words. And we know that they're the words of Schiller, but at the same time they meant, I think Beethoven used those words to create and express his own feelings. So working with the chorus, and obviously fantastic singers, including one of Alaska's own, Luke Honeck, is going to be just thrilling. But to have 3 choruses, all of them have been exquisitely prepared. The concert chorus, the chamber singers, and West High chorus, which, I've had the pleasure of working with them now, and it's going to be something very, very special. Everything just goes to that last movement, and yet in between are these wonderful moments. The first movement starts in stillness and just a couple notes, just a perfect fifth down, falling fifth, ba-bum, ba-bum. It's this. He's building. It's as if it's creation. It reminds me very much of what Mahler did in his first symphony, and you can't help but think Mahler, which is all on A, and you just hear, it's like the beginning of the world again. He's hearkening back to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The second movement's a joyous dance, a very, very long and difficult and virtuosic scherzo trio. Often this trio part goes slower. In some ways, this trio doesn't. It just continues that push forward. The third movement is one of the most glorious adagios he ever wrote, and he was known for his adagios. And this is another thing that someone like Shostakovich took. Those adagios that Beethoven wrote, which makes people sit back and contemplate and really take in and feel like they've had a deep conversation with the music and maybe with their own self. And Shostakovich, of course, his music, who I hope we will be able to present in future seasons, had that depth. When you listen to any of his chamber music or his symphonies, there's that, So Beethoven is speaking through the centuries to so many different composers, continues to, I think. Only Michael Torke with the first 3 notes of the Ode to Joy, but the third movement is quite beautiful. And it's funny, you'd think with all these quintessentially incredible movements that are, the first movement isn't a typical first movement.
Yes.
It's clearly about choosing the sounds. It's so forward-looking, it's so modern in my mind, that you can hardly believe he lived in the early 19th century, because all of these concepts are things that people are grappling even now, in art, in music, even in theater. Just what is the materials of music, and that's sort of what the first movement is. A sort of fanfare, sort of a procession, something that's grand. In a way, it's a ritual, and maybe that's to balance out what has to be conceived as oratorio-like ritual in the last movement. Everyone is going to associate the end with religious music, even though, and there's of course a huge fugue in the first movement as well.
Yeah.
So you have then the big fugue in the last movement, which is a giant choral fugue, a double fugue.
Not just a fugue, a double fugue. It's insane.
It really is. But it balances out in some ways. He's trying to show, okay, this is the outline of what I have in mind in the beginning in the first movement, and it's realized perhaps in the last movement. But when the orchestra, it's a double exposition, as we say. So the fourth movement starts, and it's completely instrumental. We even hear the melody, the Ode to Joy, sung out just by the orchestra. And then it's as if he's taken a big pen and ink and slashed out, and all of a sudden the cacophony comes back and says, nope, not that. And all of a sudden we have the bass singing to the people. It's the same melody that the basses had, but now it's the words, not what you've heard before, but now this is what I want to say.
It's just a mystical moment.
It really is. There's nothing more incredible. And we have such a delightful, Joseph Parrish has the most beautiful voice. I recently worked on some Mahler songs with him in the Rückerlieder. And it's a beautiful, glowing, burnished sound. And so I think it's going to be quite extraordinary to hear that addressing the audience, and that thus begins the poem in a way.
Yeah.
But Beethoven wrote those words. He wrote those words to the audience first. So you hear him, and I can't help but think that he had himself in mind as the speaker. And that's, to me, gives me chills. He left himself so completely in this piece. So distinctly, I don't know about completely, but distinctly, you have Beethoven speaking to us. And that's what, it thrills the musicians who are playing. I have to tell you that many of the musicians say, I just get chills hearing in the third movement or whatever it is. There's something that just makes them so excited to play.
It's truly one of the marvels.
Yes,
of
it's a monument. It is.
And that it has been played at such historic moments.
Indeed.
Like the tearing down of the Berlin Wall, and it means so much to us as humanity.
Which he could not even imagine that there was a wall in Berlin.
Exactly.
But you're absolutely right, and I think also for us as a valedictory celebration of 80 years of the Anchorage Symphony being here in the community, being made up of musicians who live here in the community and who have served as teachers and as neighbors, and in so many ways have been friends to our audience and our community, and served our community for those many years. It says a lot about Anchorage and the strength of it and its innate talent.
And the resilience.
Absolutely.
The resilience at this time.
Indeed.
And hope.
It's all there, and the first half complements that. And yet it also, for me personally, reflects our continued devotion to giving voice to the voices, the living voices in our art, which we call classical music, but which is art music. And I hope that we will always be devoted to giving voice to the present as well as the eloquent past.
Well, I think this is an absolutely perfect program for the finale of our 80th, and the musicians I know, speaking as one of them, very excited about all of it. Even though there's no keyboard part in the Beethoven, I've had the luck and joy.
Well, you've been accompanying us all along. You'll be accompanying our rehearsals, all of our choral rehearsals that involve just chorus and you play. You are the whole orchestra when you do that, and then also our singers, and we have rehearsals with them. So
it's a wonderful
you've been involved.
collaboration.
You've
Yes.
been definitely involved. So.
Well, we're excited about this finale and then hearing about what will be on deck for next season sometime
indeed.
in the coming weeks.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I hope everyone will be excited about
We
what's
have a
in
great
store.
season ahead. We have a great season ahead.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you, and thank you for the years you have now been spending with us as our music director.
I don't even know how many years it's been. At least 4.
So, and here's to another 80 years of
Absolutely,
the
for the
Anchorage
Anchorage Symphony Orchestra. Yes, absolutely.
So I hope you're as excited as we are about the program. We'll see you in the Atwood Concert Hall. And many, many thanks to Harrington and Company for sponsoring the concerts next weekend. Here's to a grand finale.